Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Jessenheiser. I'm the Assistant Director of the Jan and Bud Richter Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning here at Fresno State. And I'm pleased to be able to provide you with this resource for preparing your application for this Fall 2021 Service Learning Showcase. So first, I'd like to start off by giving a brief explanation of the showcase. It was started several years ago by student leaders in the Richter Center who wanted to provide their peers with a forum for presenting on their service experiences. The showcase provides participants with an opportunity to speak to a greater audience, as opposed to just writing a paper for their teacher or presenting to their fellow classmates, for example, and give these students an opportunity to practice articulating the impact of their experience. Typically, the showcase takes place in person, but we've moved it into a digital format since spring 2020 in response to the pandemic. And the showcase consists of a few components. The first part is reflection. So students will complete some reflection questions when they submit their proposal. They also should undergo a reflection process as they're preparing their poster files, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. But reflection is really where the learning happens in service learning. And so we're happy to provide another avenue for students to engage in reflection. The poster that they create will be posted on the Richter Center website and on our Facebook, which is just at Richter Center. And then there's also awards available in two categories. So there's Best Reflection, which is reviewed by a panel of judges, and then the People's Choice Award, which is actually voted on Facebook. So a couple of different areas for students to also get some extra recognition for their work. Next, I just want to do a quick overview of the timeline for this fall's Service Learning Showcase. So the submission portal opened on October 11th. The deadline to submit is November 21st by end of day. So at 11:59 p.m. on November 21st, the portal closes. We expect to notify folks by November 30th if they will be included in the showcase. During this time too, if we have any problems with submissions or files that were submitted and have some questions, we'll also start working with folks at this time. This is also when the peer review process begins for the Best Reflection Award. By December 6th, we will post all of the presentations to our Facebook and the Richter Center website. At this time, voting also opens for the People's Choice Award, which is conducted on Facebook. Around December 15th, we will announce the winners. And after that point, and kind of heading into January, we will arrange prizes with the winners. A recommendation I have is just to make sure that you can receive emails from me. I'm usually the one communicating with students who submit. And so you'll want to check your emails from mjessen@csufresno.edu and just make sure that you're opening and responding to those emails. So next I want to talk about submission guidelines. As I mentioned, the deadline to submit is November 21st by end of day. And the submission link is bit.ly/fall21SLS, and that is case sensitive, so all lowercase. There's several areas that we need information from you. And in a minute, I'll actually go into the submission portal and show you what that looks like. So we'll need your name and contact information. If you're presenting as part of a team, we'll also ask you to provide the names of any additional presenters. And the lead presenter is the person who is going to maintain contact with our team. We also need information about your service learning course, including the course title and the name and email of your instructor. Then we need some more information about your service learning project. Specifically, we need to know the name of the community benefit organization where the service was completed and the number of service learning hours that was done on the project. If you are part of a team, please give us the total number of hours for everybody combined. Next, we'll ask for some information on the actual presentation. So please give your presentation a title. Try to avoid things like Melissa's service project. Think about maybe using something you learned as a headline, something that provides viewers with a little bit more detail about your project. And then you'll also have to submit a short abstract, 500 characters max, where you share information about the community benefit organization you served with, the course you were enrolled in, and a short description of your service learning project. So like, what activities did you do? What issue did you address? These abstracts will accompany your poster files on the website and on Facebook. And then finally is the reflection component. So there's 2 short reflection questions you need to answer. And again, if you're doing this as part of a group, you'll need to work on your reflection responses together. So the first one is to provide a short reflection on what you learned through this service learning project. So that could be skills you gained, maybe a new understanding of a course concept, or a different perspective on the community. And there's a 1,500 character maximum on this one. And then the next question is a short reflection on the impact that was had on the community. So maybe some tangible changes you saw or anecdotes that demonstrate how your service work made a difference. And like the other one, this one has a 1,500 character maximum. So next, I want to show you what the submission portal looks like. Let me share my screen again here. So at the top, it has all of the details about the guidelines. So if you need to see those again, you can. And references back to our website if you need to visit that. Here's where you enter the information for your lead presenter, their emails, co-presenters. So you can see it's just like a traditional survey. And then at the end is where you put your abstract, your short reflection. And then here you will actually upload your poster file. And I'll talk some more about those in just a minute. And then you're done. Once you submit that, it's completed. So next, I want to talk some more about this poster file. And what do we mean when we say poster presentation? So as I mentioned earlier, traditionally, this was an in-person event. And so you would send us a file that we would print on a huge poster. And so in lieu of that, now we are posting digital files. So some requirements to think about and consider. It has to be a PowerPoint file. We need to have the capacity to edit it in case there are any major issues, and also to help us ensure that the files are accessible. If you don't have PowerPoint, you can actually create it in Google Slides and export it as a PowerPoint file. And in a second, I'll show you how to do that. The poster file has to be uploaded at the time of submission. So no submitting your information and then the poster file comes late. It all has to come in at the same time. And then please name the file with this format using the first and last name of the lead presenter. It'll just make it a lot easier for us to keep track of which poster belongs to which presentation. The other thing I really want to clarify, because this seems to be an area where we've had some confusion in the past, is even though you're making it in PowerPoint, it should only be one slide. So just one slide that serves as a poster that would contain all the information that you want to share. If we get more than one slide, we'll end up kicking it back to you and asking you to revise on a very short turnaround time. We have this year for the first time provided some templates that you could use. If you need a little bit of help, they're not required, but they are available to you as a resource. And I'll show you those in just a second as well. And then all the posters have to contain this information. You need to have your presentation title, the names of all presenters, the name of the associated class, and the name of the community benefit organization that the student partnered with. Anything else that goes on your poster is up to you. We recommend thinking about sharing what you did and the impact it had on you and the impact that it had in the community. But you do have free reign to kind of decide what's the most important information that you want to share with a general audience. There might also be some requirements that your teacher has for what they want included on the poster. And so you will really need to check with them about that. Next, I wanted to show you where you can find the templates, PowerPoints, in case that's something you wanted to use. It's on the Richter Center website under Student Showcase. And then down here, there are 3 templates that you can use. So once you click on that, it'll automatically download it for you. So here's one template. It has, the watermark about the showcase and our Fresno State logo. But here you can adjust and adapt things based on your needs. So we encourage you to put your poster title at the top and your name and your course name and your instructor if you like. If you want to use a subtitle, there's instructions here. So you can just click into any of these spaces and, add a picture or a smart graphic, whatever you want to do. If you don't have PowerPoint, all students through Fresno State have access to creating something in Google Slides. So if you get into your slide window, and I just opened one and created a quick test one, and you go to File and then Download, you can select Microsoft PowerPoint. So it'll download it as a PowerPoint. And then when you go back to the showcase submission, you just grab that and drop it in. You don't have to open it on your end. So you don't have to worry about not having PowerPoint as an application that you own. Okay, so next I want to go over some tips and recommendations. These are things we've learned over the past several years of hosting the showcase. So the first thing is think about your audience. So again, this is a more generalized audience. It's not your instructor. It's not necessarily your classmates. It's not even necessarily your community partner. So how would you explain things to an outsider? Make sure you provide the appropriate context and clarification that they might need. So for example, if you're going to reference a theory that you learned in your class that you saw at your site, you might need to give a short description of that theory, or try to avoid using acronyms that the general public won't understand without defining them. The other recommendation we have is to think about your poster as the story of your service experience. And as we all know, good stories usually have some very important detail. There's usually a critical moment that is analyzed. If you underwent a change or saw a change in the community, what does that arc look like? What's the before? What's the climax? What's the after? So think about how you can use storytelling to explain or express your experience in a meaningful way. We also recommend that you think about accessibility as you're preparing your your poster slide. So just be aware of color contrast. If there's not a big contrast between the text and the background color, it makes it really hard for those with visual impairments to be able to read it. If we get a slide where the contrast isn't accessible, I will kick it back to you and have you correct it. The other thing to think about if you're using any images in your poster file is any permissions that you need to be able to use those. So for example, if you work with children or other at-risk communities and you have pictures of yourself doing that service, make sure you have permission to use the faces in those pictures before you add it, especially because this will be posted on Facebook. Another thing that happens frequently is students put their email or phone numbers on their poster slides. That's something that we delete because this is going online. We don't want to be sharing your personal contact information. So make sure you don't include that. And then include all of the required information for your posters as outlined in the call for submissions and any content required by your instructor. If your instructor hasn't given you specifics, I do recommend reaching out to them and just clarifying what they would like to see on the poster. And then the last little tip is prepare your submission in a Word document. And then when you go to submit, just copy and paste it into those submission boxes, especially for the longer sections of reflection. It just, makes things a little bit easier. So lastly, I just want to review again how to submit. You can download templates, view samples from last semester, review the guidelines on our website, fresnostate.edu/CESL. And then if you go into programs and then student showcase, you'll get to it. Next, make sure that you give yourself plenty of time to prepare your submission responses and your poster. And then finally, be sure to submit it by end of day on November 21st. Again, that link is bit.ly/fall21SLS. So I hope this video provides you with a little bit of support and resources as you plan your submission. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Melissa Jessenheiser. I'm at mjessen, JESSEN, at csufresno.edu. Thanks and best of luck.